I want to welcome you to another question to ponder. And in this Thanksgiving season, I really have a question I want you to focus on, because I want to know, if are you thankful during this Thanksgiving season? Are you thankful? There's a wonderful story in the Bible about somebody who was part of the thankful minority. I hope you're part of the thankful minority, because not everybody, by their expression, by their lifestyle, is really very thankful. But here's a story in the Bible. Jesus is with some men, and it's in Luke chapter 17 and verse 11. Here's what the story says. Came to pass, as Jesus went to Jerusalem, that he passed through the midst of Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered into a certain village, there met him 10 men, and they were lepers, and they stood afar off. And they lifted up their voices, and they said, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said, Go and show yourselves to the priest. And it came to pass, as they went, that they were healed. As they went, they were healed. And one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back. With a loud voice, he glorified God. He fell down on his face at the feet of Jesus and gave him thanks. And he was a Samaritan. And Jesus answered and he said, Were there not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? There are not found that return to give glory to God except this stranger? And he said to him, Arise and go your way. Your faith has saved you. Now, this is an incredible story. It's the story of the thankful minority. We see 3 things in these verses. First, the account begins with the 10 unclean men. 10 unclean men. All of them have the scourge of the ancient world, the disease that would put tremors in the heart of a pauper or a king, called leprosy. There was no cure for leprosy. It was a fatal disease. It began with a small spot discoloration on your skin, but over time it would take over your whole body. The extremities, like your fingers and toes, could begin to rot, and it was just a loathsome, terrible disease that had no cure in the ancient world. And so we have these 10 unclean men. Now, one of the men is a Samaritan. The other 9 are Jews. The Samaritans and Jews typically had nothing to do with each other. They hated each other. They stayed apart. But you know, there's something to be said for shared suffering. We're 8 months into the COVID-19 global pandemic, but there's shared suffering. And people who didn't know each other, neighbors who weren't acquainted, co-workers who didn't have much to do with each other, because of the shared suffering, some people have stepped up, and we've seen some of the best of our humanity making sure that people have food and supplies, family or friends or even strangers. Sometimes suffering draws people together. So this begins with the account of 10 unclean men. And then it begins to transition into the story of 9 ungrateful men. 9 ungrateful men, because Jesus stood still when they called him. He heard what they had to say, and he gave them a command. Now notice the command. He said, Go show yourself to the priest. Now, for the Jews, if you claim that a miracle has taken place, particularly a healing miracle, God can do that even then as a result of prayer, you had to go to the priest who would confirm the miracle. So these 10 men, all of them suffering from leprosy, at the command of Jesus, go show yourself to the priest, actually began to go. Now we would say this was a great act of faith. They weren't healed yet. They were still lepers, but they began to walk in obedience to the command of Christ. And as they went down that dusty road, maybe 40 yards and then 50 yards and 100 yards, they realized, we're healed. The leprosy is gone. Here we have 9 men, along with the 10th who have been healed, but those 9 just continue along the way to see the priest and then go tell their families we can move back home again. We don't have to live in isolation. We're no longer unclean. We've been healed. But that brings us to the third insight of these verses, for it's the account of not 10 unclean men or 9 ungrateful men, but it's the account closes that one unusual man. One of the 10 turns around, runs back down the road to where Jesus was, falls at his feet, and cries words of thank you, for he has been healed. Now, Jesus is very touched by the sentiment and gratitude of this man, but he also asked the question, where are the 9? Where's the other 9? And the only one who came back was this stranger, this alien, this Samaritan. But the other 9 Jewish men never came back to say thank you to Jesus. Now, before we judge them, I want to ask you the question, what is your gratitude quotient? Do you give thanks to the Lord? If he woke you up this morning, you probably should say thank you. If he answered a prayer last week for your children or grandchildren, something about your job, your community, money to pay the bills or the groceries, did you remember to say thank you to God? Or did you just take it for granted as if you deserved it and went along your way? But one man understood he was indebted to Jesus for the miracle of healing of an incurable disease. He's an unusual man. And Jesus tells us he, of the 10, is a Samaritan. He's not a Jew at all. But where are the 9? In this Thanksgiving season, I encourage you to be in the thankful minority. A lot of people just take things for granted, but not you. If you've given your life to Jesus Christ, all that you have is the gift of God. Every day that he gives you life and strength and friends and family are something you should thank him for. Begin your day and end your day, and especially on Thanksgiving, before you eat that meal, please bow your head and give thanks to the Lord.